International news. His Majesty the King pledges Jordan's full support for Libya to help restore the country's sovereignty and stability. Iraq presses with an offensive against Daesh terrorists and says it alone will decide the time and scale of an attack to retake the city of Mosul. And the U.S. Secretary of State reports progress in talks with Iran, but says demanding Iran's capitulation is no way to secure a deal. Good evening and very warm welcome to the news. His Majesty the King expressed Jordan's full support to Libya to help restore security and stability in the North African country. King Abdullah told Libyan Interim Prime Minister Abdullah Thani during a meeting at Al Husseiniya Palace that Jordan will support Libya in its efforts to overcome the difficult circumstance and achieve its people's aspirations to rebuild the country. The King and Thani reviewed efforts in support of national dialogue among various Libyan political forces and the government's fight against extremism and terrorism gangs in cooperation with regional and international powers. Thani briefed the King about the issues of common interest he had discussed with Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour, particularly Tripoli's interest in benefiting from Jordan's expertise in building its national institutions and training their staff. Thani said he appreciated Jordan's support of Libya to face challenges, particularly terrorist groups.
For months now, we have asked for the army to be rehabilitated by the Jordanian army. The committee is doing its work, and the head of the army has ordered all the committees affiliated with the army to sit with directors. During the coming days, there will be a meeting to learn what is going to happen in coordination regarding this issue and what plans are set to rehabilitate the army.
Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour and the Libyan Interim Prime Minister also discussed means to bolster Jordanian-Libyan ties, as well as the situation in the North African Arab country. During the talks, attended by ministers from both sides, Mansour reiterated Jordan's support to legitimacy in Libya and its elected government, stressing a democratic solution to the Libyan issue. Mansour said that since the Libyan revolution, Jordan had taken a clear position in support of the choices of the Libyan people. Mansour pledged Jordan will remain a haven for Arabs, noting that the kingdom currently hosts around 1.4 million Syrians, 500,000 Iraqis, 35,000 Yemenis, in addition to 1.5 million Palestinians. The head of the Libyan government commended Jordan for the support it had provided to his country. In other news now, Iraqi armed forces backed by Shiite militia attacked Daesh strongholds north of the capital, Baghdad. Iraqi troops have launched an offensive to retake the city, or the key city of Tikrit, and the surrounding province of Salahuddin. The offensive is the biggest military operation in the province against the terrorists. This report has more.
Thousands of Iraqi soldiers pressed their assault against the Daesh terror group in the country's north. Troops backed by the Shiite militiamen have sought to seal off Daesh fighters in Tikrit and nearby towns, the second day of Iraq's biggest offensive yet against the stronghold of the militants. The soldiers have yet to enter Tikrit, or the nearby Tigris River town of Ad-Dur, which officials describe as a major center for the militants. On the southern flank of the offensive, army and police officials said government forces had surrounded and sealed off Ad-Dur, but had not yet launched an assault on the town. The offensive is the biggest in the Salahuddin region north of Baghdad since last summer. Iraqi military leaders say the major city of Mosul is their next target. But Defense Minister Khalid al-Ubaidi said only Baghdad will decide the time and scale of an attack to recapture Mosul, the largest city under the control of Daesh. U.S. officials have sent conflicting signals about the offensive.
Just to assure you that the liberation process will be purely Iraqi in terms of forces, timing, weapons and equipment. No one else has anything to do with it. This is the Iraqi army battle. The role of the US-led coalition is to provide air support, and this is agreed upon.
A U.S. Central Command official said 2 weeks ago that the offensive could start in April or May, using 20,000 to 25,000 troops. U.S. officials have since suggested that timing could slip to the autumn. U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter assured Congress that the upcoming offensive to retake Mosul is subject to an internal inquiry.
Clearly was neither accurate information, nor had it been accurate, would it have been information that should be blurted out to the press. So it's wrong on both scores.
Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu said Ankara has sent 2 planes to Baghdad this week carrying military equipment requested by Iraq. His defense minister said Ankara was prepared to offer further support. Turkey, a NATO member with a 1,200-kilometer border with Syria and Iraq, began its training of Iraqi Peshmerga forces last month and said this could be extended to Iraq's National Guard. Farah Ajlouni for the News at 10.
And in neighboring Syria, rebels attacked a government security building in the northern city of Aleppo, setting off a bomb and then launching a ground assault. A monitoring group said dozens were killed on both sides. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said initial reports suggested that rebels had set off a bomb in a tunnel dug under or near the Air Force intelligence building in Aleppo. It said the dead included members of the Syrian intelligence agency, pro-government fighters and attackers it identified as members of a jihadist group. Aleppo is divided between government forces and insurgent groups fighting to topple President Bashar al-Assad in the 4-year-old conflict. A UN envoy is currently trying to broker a ceasefire in the northern city. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas criticized Israel's decision to hold the transfer of more than $100 million a month in tax revenues it collects on the Palestinians' behalf. Abbas spoke as he opened a 2-day meeting of senior Palestinian officials to discuss overall ties with Israel and the possibility of suspending security coordination with the Israelis. Israel announced in January it is halting tax money transfers to the Palestinian Authority. The move was in retaliation for a Palestinian decision to join the International Criminal Court, where it plans to pursue war crime charges against Israel. European and American diplomats are worried such a long suspension would push the Palestinian Authority to the brink of collapse, affecting stability across the occupied West Bank. Abbas described the withholding of tax revenues as a provocation.
This is a historical stage. The situation that we have agreements, Palestinian Authority without authority. What shall we do? Until when is this situation going to continue? Is there any hope for peace? In my opinion, we have to study the current situation to get the authority back. For example, how can we assure that we get the authority back? How can we assure to have an authority with authority? And how can we assure that everybody would respect the commitment and not only one side?
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that simply demanding Iran's capitulation is no way to get a nuclear deal with Tehran. Kerry, who spoke as he wrapped up 3 days of nuclear talks with Iran, appeared to refer to a demand by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Kerry said he would not be distracted from the talks by external factors or politics. We get more in this report.
Progress being made, but significant gaps and important choices remain. This is how U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry characterizes the outcome of 3 days of talks on Iran's nuclear program. During the negotiations in the Swiss lakeside town of Montreux, Kerry and Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif have talked for more than 10 hours since Monday, hoping to work out a framework deal by late March. Zarif was asked by a reporter if progress was made. He replied, "We have, but a lot of work remains." Today's meeting came a day after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned U.S. President Barack Obama against accepting a nuclear deal with Iran that would be a countdown to a potential nuclear nightmare, as the right-wing Israeli leader described it. Iranian Parliamentary Speaker Ali Larijani strongly criticized Netanyahu, who had addressed the U.S. Congress, where he warned the U.S. lawmakers against a nuclear deal with Iran. Larijani told the Iranian parliament that Netanyahu's speech was a political show. Iranian experts said as the nuclear talks enter their final stage, a deal on Iran's nuclear program could be reached if the United States has sufficient political, well, and agrees to remove all sanctions on Tehran.
I think the 90 yards have already been passed, and this last 10 yards is just making sure that there is a proper understanding on the primary elements that the two sides have in mind. And therefore, as far as Iran is concerned, is to make sure that there will be a lifting of sanctions. This, therefore, should be probably the last hurdle before we'll have an overall understanding as to what the detailed agreement will look like.
Iran and world powers are trying to put a framework agreement in place by the end of the month, despite the misgivings of Israel, U.S. congressional Republicans, and some regional countries. Such an record would be followed by a comprehensive agreement to be completed by the end of June. Hiba Al-Atoum for the News at 10.
Saudi Oil Minister Ali Naimi said he hoped and expected the oil market to balance and prices to stabilize. Crude prices have hit a near 6-year low in January. Saudi Arabia, the world's biggest crude exporter, pledged to supply as much oil as its customers need as recovering demand helps rebalance the global market. The Saudi minister said his country is committed to helping balance the oil market. But he added in a speech in Berlin that it is not up to Saudis to subsidize higher cost producers and that circumstances required non-OPEC nations to cooperate.
With the recent price drop, OPEC and Saudi Arabia have yet again been maliciously and unfairly criticized for what is, in reality, a market reaction. Some speak of OPEC's war on shale. Others claim OPEC is dead. Theories abound. They are all wrong. Going forward, I hope and expect supply and demand to once again start to balance and for prices to stabilize.
The world's officially recognized oldest person, Misao Okawa, was feted her 117th birthday a day early in the western Japanese city of Osaka. Okawa was officially recognized by the Guinness World Records as the oldest person alive 2 years ago when Jiromin Kimura, also of Japan, died in June 2013 at age 116 years and 54 days. She appeared before local media with her 92-year-old son and 2-year-old great-grandson. Japanese media did not explain why she was celebrating her birthday a day early. The mayor of the city, ward where her senior citizens' home was located, wished her a happy birthday with flowers. Asked about the secrets of her longevity, she said she had no clue. A British amateur photographer has taken a spectacular, rare image of a weasel riding on the back of a flying green woodpecker. Martin Lee was walking with his wife through Hornchurch Country Park in East London on Monday when he heard loud squawking. He saw a woodpecker flying in his direction when he snapped some photos for the unusual scene. The photos have since quickly gone viral in the media and on social networks. New Guy Larouche's designer Adam Anderisk offered an edgy patchwork vision of the future. His patchwork collection of rocky leather biker jackets with deconstructed sparkly panels was a nod to the house's namesake, who was not obsessed with the past but had his eyes firmly on the future. Trench coats were constructed from a set of panels and flaps in competing fabrics that had a half-fished or finished feel, while skirts were adorned with yet more panels, many with a glitzy finish. Sky-high leather boots, while a somber palette of blacks and blues gave the collection a dark, romantic vibe. English Premier League managers Gus Poyet of Sunderland and Steve Bruce of Hull City confronted each other on the touchline during the Premier League match. Hull's Dan Endoin gave them the lead after 15 minutes. Uruguayan Poyet was sent to the stands by the referee after kicking his team's water bucket in anger when Jack Rodwell was booked for diving in the second half. Sunderland then equalised through Rodwell with 13 minutes left. The draw left Sunderland in 16th place on 26 points, 4 above the relegation places and 1 point below Hull. And Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton is hoping his Mercedes team will be even more dominant this season, even though he also wants rivals to give him more of a challenge. Mercedes won both titles last year, with Hamilton winning 11 races and German teammate Nico Rosberg 5 of the 19. Hamilton, who is negotiating a new contract with Mercedes, is aiming for his 3rd championship this year. Now, let's have a look at the weather forecast. Cold tonight in most regions with westerly moderate winds. Tomorrow, a slight rise in temperatures will create fair weather across much of the hilly areas and warm in the Jordan Valley, where the Dead Sea should expect a high of 27 degrees. Winds tomorrow will be northeasterly changing to southeasterly fresh. The Port of Aqaba should expect a chilly night tonight and a warm day tomorrow with the appearance of high clouds. Winds there will be northerly brisk and the sea slightly choppy. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To close our top stories once again. His Majesty the King pledges Jordan's full support for Libya to help restore the country's sovereignty and stability. Iraq presses with an offensive against Daesh terrorists and says it alone will decide the time and scale of an attack to retake the city of Mosul. And the US Secretary of State reports progress in talks with Iran, but says demanding Iran's capitulation is no way to secure a deal. And that's the end of tonight's news. My name is Raad Lubtouj. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good night.